There is a specific kind of person you need to know about. They are not cold. They are not cruel. They do not arrive in your life with obvious warning signs. They arrive like relief, like someone finally handing you water after years of quiet emotional thirst. They listen to you in a way that feels different from everyone else. Not casually, not distractedly, carefully, like someone studying the architecture of your pain. They notice the smallest shift in your voice when you talk about your childhood, the hesitation before you admit what really hurt you, the way you hide your deepest insecurities behind jokes. And at first it feels like a miracle. Finally, someone understands you without needing long explanations. Finally, someone sees the loneliness you learned to hide behind strength. This person is often described as a dark empath, and they are dangerous not because they appear cruel, but because they appear safe. Dark empaths do not manipulate through obvious control. They manipulate through emotional precision. They remember the thing you said once at 2 in the morning, the insecurity you tried to laugh off, the abandonment you never fully healed from. They pay attention in ways that make you feel emotionally chosen. And if you grew up feeling unseen, that kind of attention does not just feel good, it feels necessary. Because human beings are not only desperate for love, they are desperate for recognition. We want someone to look at us and say, I see the pain you never learned how to explain. And dark empaths are extremely skilled at creating that feeling. So you mistake emotional familiarity for emotional safety. Conversations with them feel intense immediately. Vulnerability appears early. The connection feels powerful within days, sometimes even hours. But real trust does not rush. Real connection does not explode into existence. It unfolds slowly, quietly, over time. Manipulation accelerates intimacy because control works best before clarity arrives. At first, you do not notice anything wrong, but slowly something begins to shift. You start leaving conversations feeling drained instead of safe. Your chest feels heavy after opening up. Emotions that once felt clear begin to feel confusing. Somehow, every conversation starts circling back to their feelings, their struggles, their pain, and without realizing it, your emotional world begins revolving around them. Then comes the cycle. One moment they make you feel deeply valued. The next moment they become distant, cold, unreachable. Then suddenly warm again. Your nervous system never fully relaxes because it keeps chasing emotional stability that keeps disappearing. Over time, your brain changes how it attaches. You stop seeking peace, you start seeking resolution. That is why these relationships feel addictive. Not because you enjoy pain, but because unpredictable affection creates emotional dependency. The good moments feel extremely powerful, precisely because they come after emotional withdrawal. A starving person experiences crumbs like a feast. And the deeper layer is this. Many dark empaths are not born from emptiness. They are shaped by emotional chaos. A child raised in unpredictable emotional environments learns to read danger through silence, tone shifts, facial expressions, even footsteps. They become highly sensitive to emotions because survival depended on it. Over time, emotional awareness becomes armor. But when healing never happens, that armor can turn into control. Some people become so afraid of being abandoned that they begin controlling emotional dynamics instead of trusting them. They learn how to trigger guilt before others can leave, how to create dependency before rejection happens, how to use emotional understanding as influence instead of connection. And often they do not even consciously realize they are doing it, but unconscious behavior still creates real emotional damage. You will notice another sign in how they respond to your boundaries. Healthy people may not always love boundaries, but they respect them. Dark empaths experience boundaries as emotional rejection. Your need for space feels like abandonment to them. Your honesty feels like disrespect. Your independence feels like loss of control. So instead of directly violating your boundaries, they punish you emotionally for having them. Suddenly your no becomes selfish. Your silence becomes cruelty. Your need for peace becomes proof you do not care enough. And because they understand emotions deeply, they know exactly how to activate guilt inside you, especially if you were raised to prioritize other people's emotions over your own. Some people grow up learning to survive by managing others emotionally. They become the peacekeepers in unstable homes. They learn to apologize quickly, to stay small, to avoid conflict at any cost. And as adults, that conditioning does not disappear. It becomes the reason they feel responsible for everyone's feelings. Dark empaths recognize this instantly, not because you are weak, but because you learn to abandon yourself to maintain connection. That is why empathetic people often stay too long in emotionally confusing relationships. They keep waiting for consistency to return, for the soft version of the person to reappear, for things to go back to how they felt in the beginning. But manipulation does not heal through patience. At some point, empathy stops being love and starts becoming self-abandonment. One of the clearest signs you should never ignore is emotional confusion after conflict. You bring up something that hurt you, but somehow the conversation shifts until your reaction becomes the issue instead of the original behavior. Your tone becomes the problem. Your timing becomes the problem. Your sensitivity becomes the problem. And by the end, you are apologizing for being hurt while your pain remains untouched. That is not communication. That is emotional distortion. And because it happens slowly, you begin to doubt your own perception. Confusion is powerful because confused people stop trusting themselves. Over time, you start changing how you speak, how you express, how you react. You begin shrinking emotionally without realizing it, carefully choosing words, hiding feelings, avoiding honesty that might create tension. And slowly, piece by piece, you become someone smaller inside the relationship. Like water slowly wearing down stone, nothing dramatic, just quiet erosion over time. And maybe the most difficult truth is that many dark empaths are also deeply wounded. Beneath control, there is often fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of powerlessness, fear of being emotionally unsafe again. But understanding the origin of pain does not erase its impact. Someone can be deeply hurt and still hurt others deeply. And that realization is where many empathetic people struggle, because they naturally want to understand and save. They see the loneliness underneath the behavior. They see the wounded child inside the adult, and they start believing love can fix what was never healed. But understanding someone's pain does not mean sacrificing your own peace to carry it. That is where many people lose themselves. They confuse compassion with endurance. They think staying proves love. But real love does not require you to abandon yourself to maintain it. Your body usually understands the truth before your mind accepts it. The tightness in your chest before replying, the exhaustion after conversations, the anxiety during silence, the relief when they leave. Your nervous system remembers what your heart keeps trying to rationalize. Healing often begins the moment you stop asking how to keep someone and start asking why you feel unsafe being yourself around them. That question changes everything, because people inside emotional manipulation slowly lose sight of themselves. Their focus becomes managing the other person's emotions, preventing conflict, avoiding distance, chasing reassurance, forgetting that relationships are supposed to feel safe enough for honesty, not exhausting enough for survival. And perhaps the hardest realization is that you were never asking for too much. You were asking emotionally unavailable people for consistency. You were asking unstable people for safety. You were asking manipulative people for accountability. That was never your weakness. Your sensitivity was never the problem. Your depth was never the problem. The problem was giving endless empathy to people who only knew how to consume it without protecting it. And one day, after enough emotional exhaustion, something inside you finally shifts. You stop surviving love and start recognizing what it actually feels like. You stop romanticizing chaos. You stop confusing anxiety with connection. You stop calling emotional instability depth. And slowly, your nervous system begins learning something new. Peace. Not temporary relief. Not emotional highs and lows. Real peace. The kind where silence feels safe. The kind where honesty does not feel dangerous. The kind where love does not require survival. At first, it feels unfamiliar because your body was trained to associate love with instability. But slowly, your heart relearns what safety feels like. You laugh without overthinking. You speak without rehearsing. You exist without apology. And for the first time, you understand something deeply life-changing. You were never difficult to love. You were simply trying to heal in places that kept reopening the wound.